Welcome to the channel, everyone. We got a problem today. Let's turn my hat around. Get down to getting busy. Okay, so here's what's up. So I have a 2004 Sebring 4-door with a 2.4 liter dual overhead cam. The problem is we have no spark. And we don't seem to know why there's no spark. Well, that's why it's here. It's because no one seems to know why it doesn't spark and blah, blah, blah. So I've decided to do a little video, and these are some tips to help you get a car running again if you have a no fire situation. Now, to start with, we need to ascertain for a fact that you have fuel, that your fuel pump's not bad. A simple spark test would be no problem. Look that up somewhere. I don't have time to do one right this second. You can just basically take out a plug wire, clip it on something, and see if it's firing. But let's assume that it's not. You know that you have a no fire code. Now maybe you have a cam code that popped up. Maybe you have a crank sensor pop up. Maybe you have nothing pop up. Maybe the car's spinning really fast. Whatever the case is, I'm going to try to touch base so you can kind of isolate what's going on with this. Now the good news is that anything on this vehicle is not very expensive to fix. So whatever the problem is, generally you can take care of it very inexpensively. The problem is, or the negative side of this is, it can be multiple things. Today we're going to discuss an ASD, which is an auto shutdown relay, what it does and what its function is, and why that's important. The actual coil, which is, this is what the car is. Now, I do have a video on one with a distributor in it. That's a different animal, but right now we're just dealing with this 2.4 with the coil situation. You may be dealing with a crank sensor, cam sensor. You could also be dealing with an ECU unit. Those are a little scary to some people. They don't really know what to do with them, and they're a little freaked out about it. But let me tell you how to figure out which direction you're going with first. So, I guess the first thing to do is when someone turns on a key, we have to verify that the auto shutdown relay is in fact functioning. Now this is if you verified that your fuel, you are getting fuel, and you know that you have no fire, period. So now we're going to go through the process of elimination to decide what the actual problem is, and it's pretty simple to do. A lot of these cars, it's pretty common to have a coil go out. You could have a cam and or crank sensor go out. The computers go out on them. The ASD relays go out on them. So there's about 4 or 5 things that can happen. Each one of them could potentially be the problem. But if you start throwing money at stuff without verifying what the problem really is, then you'll just be wasting money instead of isolating the problem and fixing that particular one. So that's what that's about today. Now, since I'm flying solo, hey, that's all right. It happens. It happens. Sometimes I'm by myself. Today I'm by myself. So I'm going to get into what you need to do to start checking this car and get this thing running. You need to get back on the road. Get it cheap. That's what the car man does. Get you riding again. All right, so I guess we'll get started. So I'm going to put this thing on pause, get behind the camera, and I'm going to start talking you through what each one of them does and what you should expect and how to actually check this. All right, sit tight. We'll go to the ASD first. All right, guys. Okay, guys, now this is the junction box under your hood. Now this is very important because this is the first set of diagnostic tool that you're going to actually use. All right, so if I love you guys, I guess I can show you a little bit of my tricks. So the first thing we want to do is identify it. This right here is your auto shutdown relay, ASD. When you hit the key, this relay turns on and it brings fire to number 24 and number 25 right here. Okay? Now we want to verify that we're getting fire on both of these. So very simply, this is very easy to do when you have someone actually in your where's my little oh well, I'm flying solo. I'll just have to use these for a second. Alright, so the power's actually right here. And the second one there is the injectors, but I'm going to just do the thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is verify that I actually have a good fuse. So I'm going to look up at the light. Everything looks good. We got a good fuse, so the fuse isn't the problem. So now we're going to make sure that the auto shutdown kicks on when I hit the key, and this turns on. So y'all just have to tell me. Actually, I can see from the car when I hit the key switch. So I'm just kind of minding my own business here. Aha! Now, what the auto shutdown does is it briefly turns on the fuel injection system and brings fire to the coil. And then it turns off until it receives a signal from the computer to tell the car to keep on cooking. So the very first thing you want to do is verify that you have a good ASD and that these two fuses are actually in good shape. Now, you can verify pretty easy. I think this one is linked to it too. I can't remember what that is. But you can come through here, and you can check all your fuses, which is always a good idea anyway, just to make sure you don't have a blown one. And all our fuses are good. Of course, you know the car man's already been through this, so... Anyway, so your number 24 and number 25 are your most important critters. You're going to fire it up, and... you don't have to turn it over, just do that. Alright, so we have now verified we have a good auto shutdown relay. That's how you do it. Now, if you need to, you see these little relays right here? You can take one of those because they're the exact same model, switch it over to there if you don't get light here, and if you have a relay, bam, that's your problem. Game over, it's all good. When somebody's there, check both pins. See how I'm checking one of these? I'm checking both sides of it. You're going to do that over here. Check 1, check 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2 right here. So you're going to check these as your 3 most important fuses under the hood for what we're talking about. All right. Of course, naturally, I would tell you to actually clean your grounds, which is always a problem. And there's another set of grounds. And I'll just have to show you to them. It's underneath the computer here, looking straight down. That's where all the computer grounds are at. So good idea to clean them. All right, so let's get on to the coil. Okay, so if we're looking at the engine in this 2.4, we immediately, you see the spark plugs back here? That's your coil. Now what we're going to do is we're going to address a coil more personally. All right, hang on, let me get this one in front of us. Okay, so I have a coil in front of us right now. This is the old one that came off the car, and as you'll notice between the 2 and the 3, you see a little hairline crack right there. Now this right here happens to be the root of the problem of what initially was going on with this car, then it kind of went downhill from there. So to find out if the coil is your problem, as far as if it's bad or if it's good, you can see right here at the bottom, it has just a little clip that goes in there, a 1, 2, 3 electrical connection, and the middle one is ground. So you would just test it for ground. I mean, when you unplug it, this is the other end of the plug. Test the middle one for ground. As long as you got good ground, that's good. And with the key on, you should have a 12-volt presence there, and so it should kick on your light switch. Whenever you hit the key and that ASD comes on, it's bringing power to this coil. So now immediately we know, and I do believe it's this one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's either the left or the right that's the power. Then the other one is the trigger signal that comes in that causes the coil to fire. But regardless, the middle one's going to be negative. The one on the right or left, just check them both, and one's going to have a constant current. And of course, when this is together, you just back probe the other one that's a signal as someone's turning it over, and you check to see if you have a signal. Well, if you have positive, negative, and a signal, the problem's going to be your coil, guys. That's going to be your first problem. So, can they go wrong? Bad? Yeah. Let's take a look at this bad boy. There you go. It's definitely just crunched. It's no good. Shorted like a bad boy. It's a piece of crap. It's out of here. So that was one of the problems. Well, in theory, what also could be a problem, let's discuss this next thing. It's going to be the cam or the crank sensor. Both of these can be an issue. Okay, so the first thing I'm showing you right now is actually a, this particular one is the crank sensor. And as you see, it has the same 3 prongs on it that the other one has over there. Now, same case scenario, with the key in the on position, you should have about a 0.5 voltage to the one on the right. See, if this was inside the car, let me kind of do it like, if I can remember how it goes. Yeah. Yours might be different, but anyway, I think this one's the far right. But you should have, right now, when you turn the car in the on position, you should have just the faintest of the little signal at 0.5 volt. And that should be at this one, which is the crank sensor. Let me show you where that's at. Hang on, let me get a light. Okay, guys, time to make you drunk. So here's the location of the crank sensor. You see the purple and white wires? I've got it out for illustration. And you'll see it plugged in right there. The clip on the lock on this one's broke, but anyway, I've got it in there, and basically you can pull that clip off. By the way, there is a motor mount right here you'll have to take off. You just jack the engine up with a little bit of support, take the cross member off, or I mean the motor mount off, and it should come off in about 5 minutes. But here's your little crank sensor. Now this one with the key on should have a 0.5 volt and a good ground. As long as it has that, then you know the computer's turning on and life is good. So that's where that's at. It's an 8mm on the top that actually takes that to get that out. Like I said, it's a very easy install. That's probably about a $20 part. So you're not going to break the bank trying to correct the crank sensor. It has 3 prongs, just like I showed you up front. One's going to be a crank signal, and you can back probe the 3rd wire, and it will give you the signal. All right, so let's get back up here to the cam sensor, which is they mimic each other. Okay, guys, so let's talk about the cam sensor for just a second. Now, where's the cam sensor? I'm not getting a real good picture of it, but I want you to notice right here where it's, hold on, I'll put the light on it. It's going to be right at the end of the valve cover, right here. You see it? And it's got 2 8mm bolts that hold it in, so it's no big deal. And while we're on this for a second, there's always a possibility you broke the timing belt. And if you broke the timing belt, it's no problem. This is a non-interference engine. So you can break the timing belt at 100 miles an hour. The engine's going to be just fine. You just need to put a timing belt on. That could be your problem if you have a cam sensor signal. How you tell that is just take this off. Have somebody turn the key. And if the cam's turning fine, you probably don't have a bad timing belt. I'm not saying it couldn't have slipped, but you know it didn't break. But you should be able to hear whether it sounds right or not. Even bad timing, it will still fire. It just will run like crap, and it just won't be perfect. But you'd still have a little bit of signal. But if you get a cam code, can't get the car to start, good thing is pull this off, make sure the cam's actually turning, and bam, there it is. Now, when I was talking about a second ago, I'm just going to pray that you can actually see this. Let me find my 0.5 signal, reference signal here. I don't know if you can actually see this or not. You see the light right here? See, it's very dim, but it's only a half a volt that's going through there, and this is a signal. And like I said, they both have this signal, the cam and the crank. Now, what this signal tells you is that the computer is good. So now all we're checking, if we have power with the key in the on position to the cam sensor and the crank sensor, now the only thing we're having issues with is if one of them's not producing signal, namely the crank, which is good. But if you do not have power right here, at this point, you have to stop. Your problem now becomes an ECU issue. The computer is not telling the car to light up the sensors, and without that, the car cannot run. It won't tell it to spark unless it gets the signal from the crank and or the cam. Some of these cars will run with the cam sensor not functioning, but they don't run really good. but some of them just won't even run with the cam sensor bad. But generally, 100%, none of them will run with the crank sensor as bad. So if the crank's bad, you pretty much got a dud. No big deal. Like I said, less than 20 bucks. I think this right here was $34. So now I've replaced the crank and the cam signal, or the sensor. And as you see, I have a half volt reference. So now I know my computer's good. But like I'm telling you guys, if this does not come on, game over. You need an ECU, more than likely, or you have a break in the wires. Let's talk about the break in the wires before the ECU. All right, coming back to get behind the camera again. Okay, can y'all see this rat's nest under here? I have actually cut open the wiring harness. See if I can kind of back pan so you can kind of see where that's actually at. Okay, so basically, this harness down here, you can see it kind of starts right here and then kind of rolls under here and goes into the computer. So you basically just kind of pull it apart, make sure that you don't have any torn wires. You can check where they're connected, any bends, and any kind of wear marks you're looking for. But in this particular car, didn't find any, which led me to the next problem. Let's talk about that for a second. Right here, right by the fuse box, you're going to see an ECU. You see the yellow marking on it? It's because it just came from a junkyard. Now here's the old one. And let's talk about ECUs for a second. You're like, oh my God, I can't even deal with this. This is too much. I understand. Believe me, I understand. So I'm going to kind of pan this up where I can actually talk to you a little bit. All right. All right, guys, trying to get this up here.